Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com. Now, we've been doing a series, starting a series, which is going to go on for a long time, I expect, about flawed masterpieces. Works that have legitimate issues that we can point to and say, oh, maybe the composer wasn't at his best right there, or he did something wrong, that he should have done something better like this, for example. All of this is grist for the critical mill. But I've gotten some comments already, talking about Beethoven's Seventh and other works, by people who are just saying effectively, how dare we criticize these pieces? Who are we to criticize these pieces? And I love comments like that because I think they are so arrogant and stupid and completely obnoxious. And I'm going to explain to you exactly why and how. And then we can, keep chuckling because they're going to keep coming. And I'm going to be probably reading a few in the Despicable Me series. And I look forward to that. I really do because, some people have nothing better to do. First of all, who are we to criticize a masterpiece? We are the masterpiece's intended audience. We have every right to criticize that masterpiece. We may accept it, or we may reject it, or we may think it's trash, or we may adore it. It belongs to us, to you and to me, for us to do with it what we will and say about it what we will. That is an inarguable fact. And anybody who would claim the contrary is either some kind of mind-controlling fascist or somebody who is so insecure in their own self-worth and validation that they can't tolerate the idea that there are people out there who would not agree with them about the value of these cultural objects. Now, one of the things that makes that position even more absurd is the fact that there's no question about the value of these cultural objects. Having a conversation about them, talking about them critically, talking about them from different perspectives, it doesn't diminish them. It doesn't diminish them at all, just the opposite. It only creates dialogue, and that's a good thing, a healthy thing. And the opportunity for people to listen from different perspectives and consider differing points of view. So there's no threat. There's no threat to classical music. Do you think Beethoven's reputation is at risk because I say something about his Seventh Symphony? I mean, for heaven's sake. That's absolutely ridiculous. So that's like one giant global absurdity in the position that the conversation is somehow illegitimate, which I think is just... ugh. Then there's the question of who's having the conversation. The how dare I? Who do I think I am? Do I think I am a greater genius than Beethoven? The really stupid people will say things like, oh, let's see you write something better. Remember, we had that conversation already, right? That's the same thing as the person who goes to the restaurant and doesn't like the meal, and they say, well, could you cook something better? And they say, not the point. The point is you have a choice. You can like it or not like it. You can pay for it or not pay for it. That's it. There is nothing else to be said for it than that. But the idea, the arrogance and hypocrisy in that accusation is really kind of amusing because there is always the possibility, I know this is going to sound terribly outre, but there is always the possibility that any of us, me or whoever else is joining the conversation, is actually smarter than the composer, does actually know better, has some really good ideas about what might have been, but unfortunately was not. All of those are possibilities. And the whiny complainer person is saying, who are you to claim to be as great as Beethoven when they are claiming to know who is as great as Beethoven? I mean, they have to be able to judge. They have to be able to say, Hurwitz or whoever else is commenting, you're a moron, and you have no business criticizing Beethoven because Beethoven was a screaming, flaming genius. Well, yes, he was in certain things, and other things not. He was, composers. Some of them were not terribly well educated. Some of them were not terribly bright. You know, we don't know. One of the things I was so fascinated by when I read this biography of Furtwängler, that I wrote a big review about. It's on classicstoday.com if you want to go look at it. It was a really bad biography in a lot of respects. It was very well researched, but the conclusions were done from a point of view of bias, of trying to prove that he was actually a great philosophical mind. And one of the things you get reading his actual writings and the things he said and did is that he wasn't that smart. I mean, he just wasn't. He came from a very highly educated family, a very cultured family, but he was no genius. He didn't do well in school. He had to be home tutored. It wasn't because he was smarter than his teachers. No, it was because he was failing. And so we see things like that come out, where we have to believe that because somebody is great at one thing, playing the piano, playing the violin, composing, that they must be somehow geniuses in all things. And they're not. And composers do not have to be geniuses in all aspects in the art of composition. We talk about composers who have problems with endings, like Bartók and Sibelius. They get things moving and they don't know how to stop. Or Richard Strauss, who somebody mentioned in the comments very correctly, that his operas are absolutely glorious, but the best music starts after the plot's over and everyone just gets out there and starts singing. And there's no dramatic purpose, but it's the best music in the piece, so you can't get rid of it. These are all valid issues that are worth discussing, and they're not controversial issues. They're really not. Verdi famously said, "I may not be a learned composer, but I'm a very experienced one." And that is an incredibly self-aware statement. He knew who he was. I also think he was a genius composer. I do. But to be able to say that, to be able to know that you don't have to be all things to all people, but you have to remember that the vision that people have in their brains as to who these great artists were is often entirely inconsistent with what they really were and how they really were and what they really knew and how they really behaved and all of those things and why they did what they did. There's no justification for saying that the person holding the conversation is setting themselves up as smarter or better, which isn't our intention at all. It's not my intention. I'm not saying I'm smarter than Beethoven. I'm saying I can point out a flaw and maybe a solution to the flaw that he either missed or he had a reason for doing that's no longer valid, or whatever the reason is, right? I don't have to be a genius to criticize a genius, and the geniuses were not necessarily geniuses. And at the end of the day, and in conclusion, as I said in a couple of these videos, there is no such thing as perfection in anything at all. The only thing that there's perfection in, I think, is death. Something which is the complete negation of everything. Because as long as things are alive and breathing and moving and stuff's happening, you've got entropy going on, and things get wasted, and people make decisions that may be bad decisions or not optimal decisions. It's just, why pretend otherwise? Let's have fun and try and understand what makes the great stuff really great and where its possible Achilles heels lie and how they might have been fixed and what we can say about them. And that way we have a conversation about the music that we love and cherish, and it doesn't denigrate anybody or anything. It really doesn't. So I just wanted to make this little statement, because I know that this group of videos is going to probably engender some adverse comment from people who feel that any kind of conversation at all is just wrong. Too bad. So keep on listening, friends, and thanks for joining me. Take care.